what happens is they'll get married, and it's, that honeymoon phase is just amazing. And as years progress, the same old doesn't work anymore. And women start discovering what really works for them, what makes their body tick. And so then they go, whether it's mid-30s, early 40s, they'll go to their partner and say, listen, I've discovered some new interests, a better understanding of my body. I need X, Y, and Z. And sometimes, unfortunately for men, they read that as a criticism. Oh, you weren't good enough. And so now their feelings are hurt. And it's like, no, she's just come to understand how her body works. She's given you the playbook to not just make her happy, but to get more sex. Men, unfortunately, sometimes turn inwards and feel bad about what they view as criticism. And so that becomes an inherent problem that often leads to failure.
Hey, I'm Jen, host of the Open Bedroom podcast, where you'll find topics of sex, dating, relationships, non-monogamy, and more. I'm glad you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Open Bedroom podcast. Today, I'm joined by Paul Keable. He is the Chief Strategy Officer at Ashley Madison. That's right. Today, we're talking about Ashley Madison and the site and affairs and open relationships and all the things. As if you don't know, and you've been hiding underneath a rock, Ashley Madison is the world's leading platform for married dating. Over Paul's tenure, he's helped reshape the brand's image from scandal to sociological insight, exploring what unmet needs, emotional disconnects, and shifting cultural norms reveal about love, commitment, and human behavior in today's relationships. Paul, I am thrilled to have you on today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Me too. So I thought I'd just launch us right into the deep end if you're okay. And
Please.
The first question just being around, the why behind affairs. So here's my question for you. What patterns do you see and why people seek connection outside traditional relationships, traditional boundaries? And what do these reveal around modern relationships? Why do people cheat?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's an interesting subject because it's so taboo. It's rarely discussed in, academic or curiosity ways in terms of trying to really understand it. There's lots of conversations about, oh, so-and-so is cheating. So there's a lot of judgment and shame, but very little digging into, let's really understand this. Because if you really dislike it, and understandably, most people do. In fact, it's the only sin that's mentioned twice in the Ten Commandments. But if you don't take any efforts to grasp the rationales versus what you think is happening, you're never going to be able to make any changes. And worse, you may fall victim, to this issue yourself within your own relationships for lack of understanding. So interestingly enough, we actually had an academic come to us, a professor from the University of Missouri a number of years ago. She really wanted to know why women and men cheat. She thought she had an understanding about what society tells us one thing, Hollywood, religion, governments, all these different things. And she said, well, I'm not sure if all that's true. So let's dig in. And so this was an independent study. We allowed her access to our members so she could conduct her own research. It was fascinating. So it's a Dr. Alicia Walker. You can look up all her findings. She found that 80% of the women on Ashley Madison were in sexless or orgasmless marriages. So in essence, they were seeking to outsource their intimate needs via Ashley Madison because, in fact, they did love their spouse. They loved their family. They loved every aspect of their life, but they were unwilling to compromise on the bedroom activities. And everyone says, well, why don't they just, talk about it? I'm like, well, guess what? They do. And quite often, from the male side, they're either unable or unwilling to fulfill their partner's needs. And that can range in a huge spectrum of activity. So don't think and jump to the conclusion, oh, she wants to do something wild and freaky that's really outside of most guys' domain. I'm not even talking about that. It can be as simple as understanding how her body works. And that, leads to, some of the insights I've come to understand about women and dating and sex as it pertains to that particular, issue that drives women to our site. The main cause of that is in essence, Western society's misogynistic views on women and sexuality. We don't tell women what good sex is. I mean, we barely tell men. We show men a version of it via pornography, but we don't tell women what good sex is. So if you're a parent of a daughter, you'll probably have a conversation about being safe, about, respecting boundaries. And those are all really good conversations. If she's going to a good school, she'll get some form of sex education about prevention of pregnancies and STDs. All again, really good, but very few, if not no programs and very few parents will tell her, okay, this is what good sex for a woman is. This is how to discover how your body works. It's uncomfortable and it's awkward, and you probably don't want your teenage daughter having sex. But don't you want your daughter to have good sex with her partner? And if she doesn't know what that is, how's she going to get there? So what happens is they'll get married, and it's, that honeymoon phase is just amazing. And as years progress, the same old doesn't work anymore. And women start discovering what really works for them, what makes their body tick. And so then they go, whether it's mid 30s, early 40s, they'll go to their partner and say, listen, I've discovered some new interests, a better understanding of my body. I need X, Y, and Z. And sometimes, unfortunately for men, they read that as a criticism. Oh, you weren't good enough. And so now their feelings are hurt. And it's like, no, she's just come to understand how her body works. She's giving you the playbook to not just make her happy, but to get more sex. Men, unfortunately, sometimes turn inwards and feel bad about what they view as criticism. And so that becomes an inherent problem that often leads to infidelity. But interestingly enough, on the male side of the equation, so when Dr. Walker looked at their responses and rationales for joining our site, the majority of the men were looking for emotional validation. Because we live in a society where, for example, aesthetic compliments are a very natural outcome in a relationship from the men to the women. Oh, Jen, I really like those earrings. I think that hat looks rather spiffy on you, right? Those are normal types of feedbacks you see within a relationship dynamic. But rarely do you see a woman say, oh, Paul, I really like that sweater. Oh, those glasses frame your eyes well. If you tell a guy you're dating that shirt looks really nice on him, you're going to see him wear the living bejesus out of that shirt over the next 3 or 4 months. You're going to start questioning, does he have more than one shirt? It's because we're so unused to getting those compliments, because men are supposed to be stoic and not need that type of input from our partner. And what I find fascinating about that is that men and women are very much more alike than we want to believe. There's certain gender traits that span, that put a little bit of a bridge between us. That men want to be wanted. Men want to be desired. Women want that too, but they also want to have really good sex. So the funny thing is, we both want the same damn things more often than not, and then we just get all up in our business and in our own ways to prevent that.
Okay, I love that you just gave us a really high view. And for those of you listening, if you weren't aware of all of this, hooray. Now I'm really glad you've heard it, because this is definitely something I feel like I live with this conversation all the time with clients, with girlfriends, with people at Pilates. I am definitely in your age range group of like, the awakening has happened, And it's so true. So this is fascinating. Okay, just big picture. I'm just going to take us down a little windy road and let's dig more into what you just said. So we just had a 1.5-year throuple relationship end on last Friday. It was jarring and awful, and I've been crying and my heart is broken. And we did it because our dynamics no longer aligned. My husband, Scott, wants us to stay open. She wanted a closed throuple. And so we came to the end of this road where we were like, we can't agree. We can't move forward. I say this to tell you, we're back on the apps. We're talking to women. And I just had a conversation about this last night. So I was telling Paul right before we hopped on that I actually joined Ashley Madison a few days ago because I was like, I need to do homework. I want to see, what does the app feel like? What happens? And normally, Paul, you don't know this, but our listeners know this. Scott and I date women together, typically in a throuple sort of fashion, or, like a fun experience, unicornish with a woman kind of thing. So I was like, I'm really curious, if you're a woman on this app looking for a man, what is your experience like? Because typically all of my dating profiles are set to women looking for women, and I only see the women on there. So this was like, I want to do some research and see what men are like and how men behave on the app. And, if this is a website for cheating, how will men behave versus Field or Tinder or Facebook dating or any of these other apps? And so anyway, I was talking to this woman that I'm interested in chatting with, and maybe even having a relationship with, and I were talking about how men present on these apps. And I actually burst into the room and talked to Scott yesterday, and I was like, you won't believe what I'm finding out here. Men act the same everywhere. We're also on FetLife. So on FetLife, my DMs are filled with dick pic, dick pic, dick pic. And you talk about this. Like on Medium, you have been interviewed saying, dudes, don't present with your dick. But this is fascinating that you're saying here, the reason that people cheat for women, it's because they're not sexually satisfied, which I would love to dig in more if you want to talk more about that. For men, it's this validation. It's just like, hey, babe, your glasses are so sexy. Like, I love that blue shirt that you're wearing. You look extra hunky today, which I try to say to my partner every single day. Even today, I have a bit of a headache and I had like a warm pack on my face. And I was like, he's going down the stairs to go to grad school. And I'm like, I can't see you, but I know you look really sexy today. So
Good for you.
thank you. So it's fascinating to me. Like I'm putting two and two together as you're saying this, that men are leading with their dicks because they're proud and they want you to see it. And it's important. And they would like to have like maybe a comment back that's like, hey, nice dick. But I think what's happening on the receiving end, the women are like, whoa, I did not ask for that. Like, can you calm down, take it down a notch? So it's almost like men are like, you want to see what you're working with? Like, do you want to see what you can get over here? Here it is, which is hilarious because women would never do that. Can you imagine me just putting a picture of my vagina not only on a dating site profile pic, I would fucking never do that. But to like be the first measure of communication with a person, just bam, here's my vagina. Bam, here's another shot. Bam, here's a third. Like women would never in a million. So it's almost like men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We're going to go way back in time. We just we don't think the same. We're not wired the same. We don't even think the same when it comes to like showing you and peacocking something interesting about us. Like I have different pictures now on Ashley Madison. They're still sexy, but I don't have nipples in my vagina out. But maybe I'd get more likes. I don't know. So what do you think about all this? I'm just going to throw this back to you for a minute.
Well, I think you're right. Men, unfortunately, it is a ubiquitous function of the dating app universe that dick pics, particularly the unsolicited kind, are often a lead-in. And I think it's, not every man has done the work and dealt with his subconscious and understanding why does he do that. I think on a surface level, they think it's a filtering mechanism that says the woman who likes this is the woman I'm more likely to be able to get with. Okay, I can appreciate that, but what I would suggest is imagine how many other women who might actually really enjoy that, specific, not just image, but that activity that you're seeking, if you just approach them with a little level of respect. And what I would also say to men, if you're listening to this podcast, if you ever get the opportunity where a woman asks for it, because that's the only time you should really send it, is do some lighting, do some grooming, and present it in the way that it's best represented. Because often guys just do a quickie, and it's like, did you really think about whether or not that was the best angle? All these little things that then don't take into consideration.
Angles can do so much for you.
Sometimes you're undermining your own effort. And here's the interesting thing, and I fundamentally believe this. Women have as much interest, if not more, in sex than men. Women are very comfortable, but they need to have a sense of trust and safety because men, this is another point you really need to understand in the dating world. I don't care if this is vanilla dating, poly dating, or anything in between. No straight man has ever wondered, oh, am I going to come back alive from this date? Mm-hmm. Women have that consideration. So when you're throwing up your dick without any consideration to her intentions, even on a site like Ashley Madison or FetLife, what are you telling her? That you're literally just looking for a body part? Well, that's more attainable in different directions. But if you're looking for great sex, there's a way to communicate that. There's a way to delve into that and be direct without a lot of you don't need to jump on the relationship escalator every single time because women, again, are more than comfortable having casual sex. Not all women and also not all men, but there are both sides of the equation exist in that world. But how you go about it is the most important thing. So it's rarely the what, it's the how.
Okay, I want to do a fun exercise with you because I feel like you'll play with me.
Exercise.
Oh, you'll play with me? Okay.
Oh.
Not like get up, but just like, okay. So Paul, if you had to write a dating profile today on Ashley Madison, You're not going to stick your dick on it, obviously, because we just talked about that. What are you going to say? What are you going to write? What would you do to like
I,
woo her and make her go, I'm willing to pay the credits to talk to this guy?
well, what I would suggest first is the profile is not the place where you're wooing her. Communications is wooing. The messaging back and forth, that's the dance. Your profile needs to articulate what you're there for, what you're looking in a way that isn't crude, lewd, and lacking in grammar. So, what's interesting about Ashley Madison as a step back is, yes, our business 20 plus years has been all predicated on the notion of married dating. And I know we'll get into that.
Mm-hmm.
And our tagline is life is short, have an affair. And so that is the core of our business. But the underlying function of why we've been successful is because we offer discretion. And what I find interesting is a significant portion of our population have been joined over the past 6 or 7 years who would not identify as cheaters. They would identify as what we call disclosed non-monogamous, meaning their partner is aware, if not participating in it. So very much, Jen, like what you and your husband are doing. They're looking for others, not necessarily always to date as a throuple, but to date outside the confines of their monogamous marriage, but with each other's partners' acknowledgement and support.
Mm-hmm.
The point of that is that our membership is changing, our dynamic is changing. And it's the discretion that's offered there. And so you often, when you'll sign up, you won't see a lot of face pictures as the profile photo for obvious reasons. Even if you're not necessarily cheating, the nature of the business you're doing is not shameful or guilty, but it's, you know what, you'll be lucky to see what I look like and everything only when I invite you into that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So your profile picture, your profile write-up is the really most important part on Ashley Madison. So you want to talk about what's your rationale for discretion? Why are you seeking discretion? Because that tells me more about you. Because I'm a married, so for me, I'm separated father of 2 teenage boys. I don't need them seeing my business online. I obviously do a lot of media, so I don't want anyone screen grabbing my dating profiles with whatever particular interest I have. And so my write-up would be about the nature of my interest in discretion, and then a hint towards, am I vanilla, non-vanilla? What types of person am I looking for? Not specifically activities. Another thing, man, like don't list your sexual specific activities unless you're in a specific domain. Like FetLife's a little different. So if you're into Shibari, you're probably going to want to put that. Mm-hmm. But that's very specific to that particular app. What you're more interested in, and right, Ashley Madison, are you into power exchanges? Are you into exploring, multiple partners? Those types of things, without getting into the lewd and crude, I think are going to be more revelatory. And if they can see that you're articulate and you can write words and you're interested in enough similar spaces, a woman's going to be far more responsive to that than saying, hey, I'm free Saturday night at 8 o'clock at the Hilton. You want to meet up? Some women will really want that, but that's not the way you get it.
I love that because you're instilling safety, intention, who you're about, what you're into, what you're interested in. And like, let's be honest, this is a site for sex. I mean, it's not just sex. I'm sure some of it is, I want to just have an emotional connection with someone. I want sexy flirting. I can't do that with my wife. She doesn't do that with me anymore, or vice versa. I would love to be seen and communicated with, and all my husband does is watch ESPN. And so I understand that it's not just about sex, but for those of you that are looking for sex, it sounds like this is a really good way to get. So let me just tell you, I have 150 in a day and a half men in my inbox. The cool thing is, to your point, you don't have to put all your pictures out there. There's like a little button that you can click to get access for all the people that have given you access. And then you can go through and see all the pictures that most of them are dick pics, but a few people did actually put some interesting things in there. And then you can communicate more about what you're looking for, or ask questions about the person. I didn't do a very good job filling out my profile because I was really there just to do a little bit of homework. So I probably would get a better subset of men that were a better match, or women, because you can also filter for women that are a better match if I would have taken more time really filling it out. So, okay.
Yeah, by the way, that's going to be my second career, is helping men and to a degree women with their dating profiles, because I agree it is a struggle.
It's hard.
Because we're particularly for men, I think, because we're asked to be stoic, we're asked to be emotionless, man of the house kind of bullshit. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to writing a profile and getting into the who am I, for a lot of guys, that's actually scary as all get out. I have a very, very close friend who recently went through a divorce, and he's for first time in 30 years, he's on the dating scene, and I've been helping him guide him through how to use a dating app. What do you put on there? How do you communicate? It feels a little Serrano de Bergerac to me, but there's a part of it that I kind of enjoy. And I recognize for even a guy who is very good looking and successful and a huge amount of confidence, it's a daunting thing to step into. So all people have a bit of struggle with, like, what do I highlight? How do I present myself? And honesty goes a long way. And just not revealing all the stuff, just enough to give people a hint of what kind of person is Paul, and why would you want to, sit down for an hour or two on one night to get to know me? And that, because you just want to, give a hint of your personality and your potential interests, and then really get to know somebody through conversation. And I think that's the powerful part of it for a place like Ashley Madison, because people feel comfortable sharing a little bit more of themselves through those conversations because of that discretion we offer. You mentioned how we have the private locker for photos, that you only release those to the people you want to see them, and then you can take that key away from them.
Oh yeah, I had a bunch of revoked accesses in one day, and I was like, what is happening? I haven't even had a chance to read all these yet. There's so many of them, which is fun.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying the experience so far.
Yeah, it's been fun. Actually, I was just going to ask you about one of the app capabilities. Is there a way to actually have a conversation or a video outside of just texting within the app?
So no, we don't have any video capabilities at the moment. And everything we do really has the lens of discretion through it, particularly interestingly enough from the female perspective, because I think women tend to, cover their discretion a lot more simply because they're judged a lot more harshly for the most banal of dating activities. I always, it's funny on my team and internally, I always refer to, like, a lot of women don't want to come into work on Monday morning and have Bob from accounting, looking at their profile. And so everything that we do is discretionary. So we don't have some of the functionalities you might see elsewhere because of that very reason. We want to keep it as direct and clear and simple as possible. But, those are things we do want to look at, because video gives you the capacity to, validate people and to, basically see, are they who they say they are, kind of a thing.
Yeah. And
we have other features that speak to that too.
Yeah, I was just going to say it is felt very much like OnlyFans. Whenever you get on and there is a verification to see if you're a real human. So you upload a profile picture. It then scans your face to make sure that you are that person. And then you can go a further step with ID verification, like OnlyFans, which freaked me out the first time, because I'm like, oh shit, now I'm in the OnlyFans database and God knows who's going to get a hold of that. Go ahead.
But what's interesting is you're not in the Ashley Madison database. We do not look at your, if you give your ID to verify your profile, we at Ashley Madison do not see that. We use a third-party service so that it's not on our servers. It doesn't come to us, and they only hold it for a short period of time in order to validate you. Because what we want to show people is, you go on and see the little blue check mark on Jen's profile picture, that says that she submitted her government ID, that she's a real and legitimate person. But we don't have access. We don't get that information. We don't hold that information, which is really important, because people want to know that, okay, well, if I give my information to OnlyFans or Madison, what are they doing with it? We don't get it. We're doing nothing with it. And other companies doing it, and that's their only job, and it's all taken care of. And they work with a lot of other dating apps. So it's really a really simple and effective process from our perspective.
Yeah, that's really comforting to know, because I know as I was getting on OnlyFans for the first time, actually, I had a guest that was an OnlyFans content creator. And so our whole conversation was around the business side of OnlyFans. And I was like, I need to go check this out. I was like, gosh, with all this governmental regulation around sexuality and pornography. So here in Arkansas, where I live, you cannot watch Pornhub. It is literally blocked from the entire state. Like, I have to VPN into another state on my computer to watch porn. Not all porn, but most of the porn sites, which is fucking crazy. Which is hilarious, right? We're in the United States. I know you're Canadian. I'm just like, I can't believe this regulation. You're like, wait, there's way more regulation than just that, I'm sure. But it makes me like a little bit hesitant, because then I'm like, they're going to take away more of my access one day if they ever get this list that I'm on OnlyFans. But anyway,
it's a funny thing. The more you tell people no to something, the more people want to do that very thing. The best, and it's funny, just as I said at the top of this conversation, if you really want to combat adultery, the best way to do it is to understand it. You've got to dig into it and know what you're dealing with and not just say no bad, because as soon as you start telling people no bad but don't explain it, they're like, well, wait a minute, I want to look into that. And people get curious.
Yeah, let's just double click on that because that's an easy thing for us to dive deeper into. And that's okay. If you listen to the first part of our podcast where Paul explains why people cheat, and maybe you're the woman listening to this conversation and you're like, my husband just doesn't get it. I keep trying to give hints. I've left She Comes First book. I've sent a podcast. Like, he's not picking up what I'm putting down. And I've tried this for 20 years and I'm exhausted. And the only thing I can do is leave him. Obviously, there are other options. So, Paul, talk to us about, people having affairs to keep their marriage and the concept around that. Is that successful? Maybe if you have a stat too of like overall, how many people are having affairs that we just don't talk. And I'm sure not everybody will give their number up that they're doing it, right? But like in general, can you give us some context around this? Because I'm sure everyone listening is like, well, my person isn't cheating. The probability is they may be.
So it's interesting. We actually worked with a different academic, another researcher out of the University of Minnesota Duluth, I think to be precise, Dr. Ashley Madison. And she actually wanted to look into the outcomes of affairs. So Dr. Alicia was looking at, what was the initiator of said divorce, what was the outcomes? And so I think it was about 40% of the members said they felt their primary relationship improved after their affair.
Why?
Which is a fascinating thing. So the reason why is if you're the woman and you're not having good sex, you're just literally doing duty sex, but you love your husband, you love your life, so you're not upset at him in any other function of your life. You're not going to blow up all your life for the 10% that isn't there, because how are you going to find that other 90%? And so what they'll say, and I've heard this anecdotally because I've spoken to a lot of the members over the years, and I've heard so many women say to me, I'm a better mother, lover, and wife because of my affair, because having bad sex and anticipating, the weekend coming up, I know he's going to want to have sex because we're going to go out, we're going to have a few drinks, and I know he's going to want to, and I'm going to be left disappointed again. That creates an anxiety. That's a burden. You carry that day in and day out, not just in that hopefully more than 20 minutes of activity on Saturday night, but it wears on you. And so when they have that affair, it is such a massive release. You're not just getting good sex. You're getting unburdened from carrying all that negativity within your body. And by releasing it, they go back. And they're not looking at their husband across the table going, for the love of God, why won't he go down on me? If he did, I would just be so much happier, but I know he won't, kind of a deal, right? Or whatever the specific lack of activity is within that dynamic. And I think that's why, for the female side, why so many women come out of it. It's not suddenly that, Fabio, who they're having this wonderful affair with, is the be-all and end-all to their life. It's not as transient as he's just a body that fulfills a need. There is a mutual connection, but it's the trope of the Hollywood, story where the mistress always falls in love with the guy and wants him to leave his wife. Sure, that happens, but I don't think that's the vast majority. A lot of women are just looking, I need this itch scratched, and once I get it done, I'm a better person. So they might only have that affair for maybe a month, maybe two, and maybe come back maybe a couple months later, because once again, that anxiety is built up, that burden is built up. And the counter to it is to, our males who are listening to this podcast, like, what do I do on that? Well, be open to feedback. Ask questions like, what makes your body tick? I like to jokingly sometimes say, what brings a tear to your thigh? Because, it's an intentional permission to be a little bit fun. Sex is fun. It should be fun, right? And it's okay that what you did before worked, but it doesn't work now. We evolve, our bodies change, our interests change. Be open to what she needs. And I think, you've probably, if you did enough research on my interviews in the past, I often will say, men, understand that toys are not your enemy. They are your best friends. Mm-hmm. And if that is something she's interested in and is beneficial to her, it's not a criticism of you. It's oftentimes, it's just anatomy. Our bodies don't always necessarily match perfectly. Just like a beautiful design where pleasure is abundantly available, not everything always lines up in the perfect way for every single person. That said, there are ways to get around it, but you have to be open and listen to it. And if you think that, missionary with the lights off on once a month on Saturday is enough, and your partner's telling you no, I don't know, how to help you. You've got to just be open and honest. And women, don't come at it from a point of, here's all the things you did wrong, because that's all I'm going to hear is how shitty I am. What you want to say is, this was a lot of fun. I'm really having a good time. Here's how it makes it better for me. And again, I always say this to men. A woman who's satisfied in the bed, a woman who believes that she is trusted and is safe within the arms of her partner, is going to be open to so much more, and she's going to give so much more. They always pull away from sex, not because you didn't put the laundry away, because you didn't listen to her. You didn't hear what she said. You may have acknowledged it, but you didn't hear it. You didn't take it to heart, and you didn't act on it in a way that showed that you're listening and trying. You're not going to get it right, by the way, the first time. That's the other point. There's going to be a lot of trial and error, but that's the fun part. So lean into that. Lean into the fun. And listen, some people are going to be really comfortable looking at porn as a bit of an aphrodisiac, a bit of a learning tool. It can be that in the right context. But listening to your partner and having the conversation and having the lights on and literally saying, is like this spot versus this spot, this pressure versus this pressure, and use language like harder, softer, faster, slower. And that is a descriptive versus a criticism. And those things will almost inevitably, if you're open and willing, lead to such a better connection.
Okay, so this podcast is definitely going in a direction I didn't think it would, right? So we talked in the beginning about why affairs happen, and this has become you giving amazing sex advice. So I'm sitting here thinking, Ashley Madison is marketing positioned really for men. Like, life is short, have an affair doesn't sound to me like that doesn't resonate for me as a woman. That doesn't resonate with me and go, oh, that's right. My husband doesn't go down on me. I should just go have an affair. Like, permission granted might be a good line for women, because we need permission to allow ourselves to have pleasure, or your body is made for pleasure. Permission granted, ladies. So I think this is a fascinating conversation, because the more that we dig in, you're saying basically women want sex. Men, you're fumbling, fucking figure it out. Hey, here's some tips. Paul obviously knows how to have good sex.
Yeah, well, I hope. I put one caveat to it, that it's not just that men are fucking it up, because that seems to blame men, and that's the wrong position we get to in society, because that's often the criticism, and men will hear that and then they retreat, right? So if a man is seeking validation and you blame me for all this, here's part of the issue too, and we have to really be aware of this. In Western society, we don't, as I talked about, we don't tell women. There's no education to women on how their body works from a pleasure standpoint. There's very, very, very little outside of those who seek it out. Sometimes there's those who are really knowledgeable and they figure it out early. But for the vast majority of women, I think their sexual awakening and awareness of how their body can work comes later in life, because they're not educated. So if the sex hasn't been great and you just don't know why, like, it's not wholly the man's fault. If you don't know how your body works and you can't communicate it, how God's green earth am I supposed to know that? Because it's not sex 101. Not every woman's body works exactly the same way. So it's not just men fucking up. It is a societal issue where we don't do the education. We don't have the conversations. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't men out there who are being told what to do and still screwing up. Those guys, yeah, listen up. You're fucking it up. But there's a lot of men who are really trying, but their partner doesn't even know. And because of how they were raised, because of how society treats women, they're reluctant to lean into it, to explore, for being judged as a whore and a slut and all those things that still exist. And it's amazing that in 2025 I can still say that, and no woman's going to shake their head and say, well, that's not true. It's 100% true. And so, men, if you get any sense or semblance that your sex life, something's off in it, don't come at her with what's wrong. Come at her with, hey, how do we make this better? And women, if you think that men are not, your husband, partner, whatever, are not doing the job, do you know what works for you? Do you know how you can get off with your partner? And if you don't, if you can't articulate in a really clear way to yourself, how is he supposed to know? Because again, one partner to the next changes dramatically. And so and it's not about having some massive sexual prowess. You don't need to be the best porn star sex god in the world, guys. What you need to do is have big ears and listen and be willing to, get it wrong and be okay with her saying to you, okay, that wasn't quite it, but we'll try again. That's okay. So vulnerability is the key on both sides of the equation. Sorry to push back on you.
No, I love that. It's so true. I mean, if only every bedroom could have these kind of conversations in them. And what I find is 99% of people don't. You get married young, you're married a decade or two, you finally look at each other and she's like, I want sexual fulfillment and I'm not and he's like, well, what do you mean? We've had sex the same way for 20 years and you've never complained, right? And so there's never this so I love that we're having this conversation. And there's a part of my heart that does hurt for the men whose wives will not have sex with them anymore. Like that's like a whole subset, I think, of men where I don't know if it's menopause. I don't know if it is 20 years and it just freaking sucks and you don't want to do it anymore. I don't know if you're like, I don't know. I do think it's a menopausal thing too. A big part of it is just like, I have lost my libido and I'm just not feeling at all ever sexual and I could live forever without sex. And so I'm I guess grateful that there is a place that men can go to and still be married, but still be able, can we dig into this topic a little bit? How everyone has a right to have pleasure. And if you have a partner who's like freezing you out, what do you do about that?
Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic. The dead bedroom is a very difficult subject matter because when you get married, you promise fidelity and you're supposed to respect your partner. And so if your partner comes to you and says, listen, honey, I love you, Jen. You're the best. You're amazing. You raise our kids, all these great things. But by the way, I just don't want to have sex again. Not just sex with you, but sex, period. You have to respect that wishes. You can ask, you can probe to understand it better. But at the end of the day, you can't force them to have sex with you. So what do you do? And this is the part where I think modern relationships really haven't evolved enough because if you were to ask anybody, like, what does a guy do or what does a woman do in that situation? They're like, oh, I'll just more masturbation. And I'm like, well, masturbation is very, very different than sex because masturbation is a form of relief, stress relief, tension relief, and it feels good. But I don't think there's anybody out there who could legitimately say that their orgasms are better by themselves than they are when they have an orgasm with somebody else. Sex might be better by themselves because they're not getting the orgasm with somebody. But when you have good sex with a person versus good masturbation, sex with a person always wins in my mind. The intimacy, all the connective points, all that base DNA that's driving our desires are there. And so I do really, try to tell people that you have to understand when the dead bedroom situation comes up, there's another partner there that, is really left without any outlets for discussion, never mind for physical contact. So if you're going to tell your partner that the bedroom's dead, I don't think it should be a surprise when they say to you, well, maybe it's time to open a relationship in some capacity because I still desire to be physical for a long time. And if you are saying to me that you love me and respect me and want to maintain this relationship, but you're no longer willing to do that with me or anyone else, that leaves me in a really, difficult position. And society is struggling with it because, one, we have this idea of happily ever after that is just you and I, and no one else will ever be in this relationship. And it's a story told for centuries that it's a lie. And the other part of it is that people don't really understand what an open relationship is. They've seen one too many, whether it's TV shows or porn scenes where it's just this hot, sweaty orgy at all times, and people are screwing everybody that moves.
I mean, I wish it was like that every day.
It would be
That's
quite
why
lovely.
we love the throuple dynamic. I'm like, can we just have a three-way every day?
Wouldn't that be lovely?
Wouldn't
but
it?
That's not the reality. That's not the reality.
Yeah.
So what you need to understand is that, opening your relationship doesn't mean you're going to the sex clubs or it doesn't even mean that you're going to be having like sex with a million different partners because that just is unrealistic. But wouldn't it be better if your partner, once a month, twice a month, whatever it was, went out, had a dinner with somebody and they had, a physical connection and he came back happier or she came back happier and life went on and you weren't missing out on anything? Because if you're no longer interested in sex, he's not cheating on you in my mind, or she's not cheating on you, wouldn't that be better? Because then the anxiety in that tension that is building up in his or her body is being released, and it's not coming into the household, and you're not being dismissed because your wishes are being respected. But if you say, well, I'm not going to have sex with you anymore, and by the way, you're also not allowed to have sex with anybody else anymore, it seems rather punitive.
Yeah. It's like we've made marriage. Okay, you know how I in my day job, I work with the world's largest retailers and I sell products into it. And hear me out for a second. People that create products are like, my product is so precious. It's so precious. Like everyone needs my homemade barbecue sauce I made in my bathtub, you know? I feel like we kind of think about that. Now, marriage is precious, and I'm not shitting on marriage, but I think that one person for your entire rest of your life can check every fucking box, including best friend, therapist, Fabio lover, like that is ridiculous. So I love what you're saying, and I think that it's very true. So I want you and I to come up with a new exercise. This is going to be fun. Okay, if you and I could rewrite marriage. Not that marriage doesn't need to happen. I feel like commitment is important, and it's important for us to have partnership throughout life, whether it's 5, 10 people or it's one. What does that look like moving forward? And one little side thing I want to say is, non-monogamy is in the spotlight more than it has ever, ever, ever been. It is becoming more socially accepted. I know I can walk around with my throuple and go to the movies and make out and hold hands and go to dinner, and no one even blinks. And I live in Arkansas. So, it's happening. I'm curious, Paul, how do we rewrite the norm of relationshiping and stepping into some sort of, union or commitment as we all move forward?
If we could do that, I'm not sure my business necessarily exists in the form that it's in.
We can rewrite it. It can be whatever it wants.
We can. But the reality is, marriage originally, and this is my point about all these subject matters, you got to understand the beginnings and the underpinnings of these things in order to change or evolve them. Marriage originally was not something based on romantic love. It was based on hereditary property. It was for the royals to ensure that my heir was in fact my heir. That's all it was about. Love, that idea of romantic love, came way later in life, and we attached it. And in doing so, we created this function of jealousy and this idea that if she or he touches somebody else, they're dirty to me.
Yeah.
And this is why you see in some cultures where the bride's got to be the virgin, right? And her hymen has to be intact, and all these ludicrous concepts. And what I find fascinating is, slowly over the centuries, we have evolved now too. So I'm old. I'm Gen X. My parents were baby boomers, and I would argue in their generation, the idea of premarital sex was forbidden and taboo. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying society said you shouldn't do that. It was absolutely happening. We've now evolved to the point where premarital sex isn't just allowed, even expected, it's almost demanded, because who wants to train a virgin in a marriage? Like, that sounds horrible. So we come with the idea that I want my partner to be sexually capable. I may not want to know how that sausage, quote unquote, was made, but I do want that person to have some experiences so that when we have sex, it's good, and they understand how a woman's body works, how a man's body works, all those little things. So if we can evolve to the point where we're cool, if not expecting demanding premarital sex, what is the big deal if we're having sex with somebody at the same time, so long as each other has some conceptual awareness of that type of arrangement? And I know it's a semantics argument, but that's my point. If I'm separated, but if my wife, when I married her all those years ago, had sex with somebody else and I was aware of it and cool with it, what was the big deal if she had sex with somebody else while we were together, if I'm aware of it and cool with it? Like, what do you see the problem is? And too often we see our partners as property versus a person.
Yeah.
And it goes to the misogynistic tropes that, the slut, the whore, she's dirty. She's unclean to me. And cheating often is seen as that versus what it really is often an outlet to express unmet needs and desires that the primary partner can't or won't do. So how would I rewrite it? I would remove the idea of forevermore and say, what is our story going to be? And marriage should not be a unified single individual concept. That's the problem with it. We're fighting against an ideal that doesn't actually exist, and trying to constantly live up to an expectation that is almost impossible in some ways. Because just as you articulated, we are asking somebody, because I got married at 29. If you're asking that person to be my best friend, my lover, my co-parent, my co-financial partner, my social partner for the next 40 plus years, that's a big burden. And it was interesting as a corollary to that. This is why our business exploded during COVID, because suddenly around the world, people were locked into their houses with their partner who, maybe they still love them, but they had some issues with, and they were always able to disassociate from those issues because they had boys night, girls night, they had, go golf, go to the pub, go to the bar, go out for restaurants, go to the movies, all these things you could do to avoid that thing that was gnawing away at you. And now it's the only thing in your face 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so people signed up just for an outlet, just to chat with somebody else who's in a similar position. So my belief is if you want to make marriage, as a concept more successful, remove the idea of a unified concept of marriage. Your marriage is yours and yours alone. It cannot be anyone else's. And how you make it, so long as you both agree to it, is the best marriage possible. It may not be what Jen and her husband is, and you might think they're the happiest, most in love couple in the world, but it won't make you happy because it's not yours.
That's beautiful. I agree. Yeah, that's really good. We actually are getting married Sunday. So we've been together for 4 years. We've basically acted as husband and wife, but we're finally tying the knot legally because we have a house we just bought together and a business we're looking at buying and things that, as you get older, you're like, I need legal help with this. So just in case anyone's curious, we did a prenup because we're both coming into this union with assets and, we're not dumb, who knows what will happen. We got to write our vows to really, really reflect kind of this conversation. I honor you as a person. I understand that, we're creating this union together out of love and there's commitment here, but I don't own you. I think within my own vows, I say that, and I respect who you are and I appreciate you and I love you for exactly who you are. And I'll talk with you if I feel like our relationship dynamics need to change. These are things we can add into. Have a vow renewal and do this with your partner if you feel like there may be a space in my life that I need another person to check off a sexual box or I need an emotional connection with someone outside of my partner because they're just not able to give me that. So we have just a couple minutes left, Paul, and I could talk to you forever. But I just wanted to ask, what do you want to leave with our audience with? What's the last?
I'll leave you two things.
Okay.
Two things. First, just to finish up that point you make, because I think that's really beautiful. Yeah. We work with a sex marriage therapist by the name of Dr. Tammy Nelson, and she advises her clients to often have a 5-year monogamy contract that's renewable. So every 5 years, you have a conversation around it. And it's not designed or meant to indicate that every 5 years you question, are we going to be monogamous? It's what does our monogamous relationship mean to us? What are the dynamics of working and not working? In a perfect world, you're having that on an ongoing basis, but we know people don't do that. So what she's saying, within every 5 years, you should sit down and define it so there's clarity. And it's a really nice tool, I think, to create space to say, okay, here's what's working, here's not working, but not in a judgmental way. Because so often we wait till we're pissed off and then we have the conversation, and that can feel really negative and tense. And the last thing I'll leave you with is, Ashley Madison has been in business for 20 plus years. We've had more than 85 million members join. And it's interesting to me as I talked about how our membership is changing, and including a lot of people who are seeking a diverse range of activities. And I think our evolution is going to be less and less and less about affair-based activities and more about people choosing discretion, not out of shame or guilt, but because it's not your fucking business what I do until you get the opportunity and the pleasure, quite frankly, to be invited into it. And so for those, just like Jen did, signing up, in part because she wanted to understand the product for this little interview, but maybe she discovers that, hey, this might fit part of her needs and find some, like-minded people. You never know what you're going to find there. We have, I think it's more than 50% of the people who have signed up in the past year would identify as single. So there are people looking for a really big range of activities because they're interested in it, but they don't want the world to know about it. So it's a really joyful, upbeat place amongst a lot of pleasure seekers who just feel comfortable in their space, but don't feel comfortable sharing with all the world, just those that matter.
I love it. So if you've made it to the end of this podcast with us, obviously this is a very layered conversation. And you might have started it being a little judgy like I did. And then as you've made your way through it, you've gone, you know what? There might actually be a place in my life for this. I can see how this might fit, or a friend. So yeah, feel free to check out the site if that's interesting to you. I'll leave the link below if you guys want to go check it out. Paul, thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Open Bedroom Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and give us a like and click subscribe below and stay up to date on all the new episodes that we release. If you have a topic that you'd really like more information on, leave us a comment below and we'll see what we can do. Feel free to share this podcast with all of your friends and especially your partners. This is a great way to open up some amazing conversations. We'll see you next week.